Hello, hello, Sunflower Nation. Thank you so much for tuning in today for our next edition of Ladies in Leadership. Today, I have a former colleague and friend with me, Miss Damaris Ortega, joining us. Please give her a warm welcome to the nation. So, Damaris, thank you again for joining us. Can you just tell us a little bit about your journey to where you are now and tell us where you are?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It is my pleasure to be part of this great podcast. Actually, my name is Damaris Ortega, and I am a natural born leader. That's what I always say. I was born in the area of New York City. I come from parents that are Puerto Rican, born and raised in Puerto Rico. Came into the downstate area of New York um, in the 70s. And they came in looking for better opportunities, better employment. And as they grew their family, they wanted better education for their children. And along that path, we moved into the Hudson Valley, which introduced me to some great experiences, right, educational wise. And then about the early 90s, we moved into the Rochester, New York area. Of course, my father looking for better opportunities, being that our jobs were being outsourced during that time. And again, just striving for better living for us. We came to the Rochester area. I went to high school here for a short while. Being a teenager and wanting to make my own decisions in life, I decided to move back into the New York City area. I became a teenage mom at that time, right? Just exploring the world and really not knowing anything. But as I explored my journey and became a woman, learned that education was going to be best for me and was going to get me to the places that I dreamed about. And
Absolutely.
and help me guide myself, right?
So
Into
tell me a little
um,
bit about how old were you when you became a teenage mom?
I was 16 years old.
Okay.
Mhm.
16.
Yes,
Obviously still living with your parents.
correct.
How did they respond to that?
Ooh, I thought I was going to be murdered because of course, because of course I was warned, right? That these things happen, right? That if once you have a boyfriend and you don't obey by policies at home and you're not obeying your parents, these things are going to happen, right? Not necessarily that they taught us about sex because that wasn't mentioned, but it was that, hey, you get a boyfriend, you're going to end up pregnant, you're not going to be in school no more, and there goes your future. So of course it was very difficult, very, very difficult. I remember telling my mom for the very first time, which I knew she knew it, right? Because moms know things. I remember entering about a week before I told her, and she looked me up and down, and I knew she knew it. So I couldn't hide it anymore. And when I told her, the first thing she said is that, your father's not going to want you here.
Mm.
So you're, figure out a way to defend yourself. And of course, me being 15 at the time, I got it all planned. I have a boyfriend, him and I are in love. We are going to become parents and we know better. You know? But it was a challenge because I was so embarrassed that I hid from my dad for 9 months.
Wow.
He got me pregnant. And I remember him knowing that I was at a cousin's house and he would come around there because I know he wanted to see his daughter pregnant or wanting to know what I was doing or how I was doing. But I hid
So
the
he knew you
whole,
were pregnant. Did you
yes, he
ever
knew.
tell him or did your mom tell him?
She ended up telling him. I never told him.
Wow.
Hid for 9 months until my daughter was about 20 days old. And her father said, nope, I'm going to be the man and I'm taking her to your father. And my dad met my daughter, his grandchild. And then, of course, I went home and everything was kind of accepted. And, I knew then that I had to prove to them that I was never going to commit that mistake again and that I was going to continue being the child um, that they wanted me to be and the expectations that they adhered for me, right? Because, they were hard workers and all they preached home was that we want you to be better than us.
So fast forward,
Mm-hmm.
somehow you
That,
end up in college, right? Which
so,
means you had to have some type of support along the way. So I'm assuming your parents came around.
of course. And yes, I decided to go back into, even though I lived in the New York City area, my parents would always come and visit me. And they always provided a way for my child and myself, along with her father at the time, to come visit them. And, we were family, all
So
that
at
was.
16, when you had the baby, you were still living with your parents.
I was not living with my parents because remember, I had to leave.
Oh, so you
My
did
mother
have to
said,
leave. Your mother did make you leave.
yeah, oh,
Okay.
she did. Oh, she did. So I went in and lived with my boyfriend at the time and his parents.
And they were
And
okay with that?
they were fine with that. Yeah, they were fine with that. They always knew, right? I'm a good girl. She doesn't bring drama. She's okay. We'll love her. We'll love the baby. And but I guess, once the baby was born, my parents had a change of heart.
Okay.
Mhm.
So is that boyfriend still around?
Actually, he isn't. We ended up moving our own separate ways at the age of 20 because at that age I knew that I wanted to pursue my goals and my career and my education. I'm sorry, I have some dogs back there. Okay. And I went back to school. I went back to school, even though through 16, 17, 18, I completed my high school years. And at 20, I was like, I need some education. I went back to school. My parents supported me. Of course, the baby was in school, but when that time came that she wasn't in school, I would send her to Rochester in order for my parents to support me. And, they've always supported me. Um, I am the eldest. And as my siblings grew older, they always supported me as well.
It's
Mhm.
nice to have that family support.
Yes.
Definitely helpful. So did you complete high school
So
or
I
did you
did
get it?
complete. No, I actually got a GED through a program that was going to grant me an associate's degree. But life happens, right? And that boyfriend, the father of my child, and I separated. He went his own way. I stayed there. And of course, then I started struggling financially because then it was my child and I paid rent. I lived in Queens. Back then, rent was $600, right? And I believe the minimum wage was seven something.
All right. So
Um,
let's put this in perspective for the listeners. How old is your daughter now?
so my daughter right now is 31 years old.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we're talking 31 years ago, $600
Yes.
rent. I know if people are hearing this right now, they're like, oh, send me the
Yes.
address so I can go there. But so we're talking
Yeah.
31 years ago, right? So $600
Yes.
rent 31 years ago is pretty hefty. That's a pretty big amount of rent to have to manage on your own with a small child. So tell us a little bit
Yes.
about that process.
So, because of going through a rough separation with her father, based on the decisions that he wanted to make in life, we weren't getting along. So, um, I have a deep faith based in which, I believe in God and always knew that I can persevere through anything, right? My resilience. I would look for jobs that were in education. That way I can bring my daughter along while I work. And of course, I had three jobs. I held down three jobs. Um, Two of them, I can bring my daughter to the job. One of them, I couldn't. Um, but during the time that I had to work that third job was during the summer. And of course, I would send my daughter to my parents who continue to help me. That way I can succeed and accomplish what I had to accomplish.
So I oftentimes hear moms talk about mommy guilt. I know that's something I definitely have experienced myself. So I can't imagine sending my baby away for the whole summer. How did you feel and cope with that?
So first of all, I knew that she was safe, right? She was with my parents. Um, Secondly, is because I had to work. I had to work. You
So you saw the
know,
bigger picture. You were able to
correct.
focus on the
I
bigger
saw
picture.
the bigger picture. I knew that I already had been a statistic, right? Becoming a teenage mom at 16. I knew I was a statistic that I didn't complete high school. I knew I was a statistic that I had to collect food stamps, right? And go to welfare at times and depend on the government and medical insurance. So, because of those reasons, I didn't want to continue being a statistic. And I worked very, very hard and saved all my money, paid all my bills. But the mommy guilt, yes, of course, was always there, right? Because I knew I was a teenage mom. I was still learning things. I was still a baby. You know, how can a baby take care of another baby? And because of those reasons, I worked hard. I worked hard. I worked really, really hard. But the guilt was always there. How am I going to raise my baby to not follow the same steps, or commit the same burdens that I've committed?
All
Make
right.
me cry.
So I see you getting emotional, but
Yeah.
um, when I didn't know the backstory, right? There's something called the iceberg effect. You see the top
Right.
of the iceberg and you're like, wow, it's so beautiful, but you don't know all that's underneath, right? And so a lot of times people just see the finished product. They see you, a professional woman, doing your thing. You have two beautiful girls and they're doing great. And so people just assume, oh man, she got a good life. And you do have a good life, but they don't necessarily know what you had to do to get to where you are. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you are now?
So I am actually back in Rochester, New York. I relocated back here 7 years ago based on some challenges and many changes, again, that resurfaced in my life. But right now, I am in a leadership role at a charter school that's been in existence for 23 years in the Rochester community. I started there 6 years ago in a coordinator role, and which helped me initiate a lot of things. I learned how to be interim principal, interim vice principal, interim counselor, interim this. I eventually ended up getting a business degree and I guess having that business degree and of course also involving myself with a lot of leadership allowed me to initiate a lot of things within my job. After 5 years, which was last June, I wanted to focus. And my focus was that being that I had come from a college background for a couple of years and I enjoyed it and I loved it and I saw the benefits that student services, right, provides. I wanted to go back in there. And of course, they granted me that position and they granted me the opportunity. And right now, I am in a college career readiness liaison, in which provides me the opportunity to continue educating parents and students and the community. And what brings me most joy is the impact that I
Mm.
am, right? And also through that impact, being very transparent that I was there. I was in your shoes. I know it very well. And you can do it. And you can have a future. And you can make it. You think I don't know what life is about? Let me tell you some things, you know? So
Mm,
that's, and I'm loving it.
that's
Mhm.
awesome. That is awesome. That's an awesome journey. And we missed the whole middle part of it, right?
Yes.
So, one of the things that you said that really speaks to me is the fact that you love what you're doing because you know you're making an impact. Um, so you're doing work that's important to you, I'm assuming.
Correct. Yeah, work that I love, that I
Right.
enjoy. Now,
And
do
then
I
you
enjoy people that I work with, or that's a
we'll
different
talk
story.
about that. Leave that for another episode. But in your new role, was that something you advocated for that you went and said, listen, I would like to do this? Or was there opening? Did they come to you? How did that um, turn out for you? How did that all unfold?
So, within my role before this position, again, I initiated a lot of things that weren't implemented, and most of my initiations were parent education and student services, that would guide them right to seeing a better future. And that was the conversations I kept having throughout the years. Help me, Miss Ortega. Guide me, Miss Ortega. What do I do next, Miss Ortega? So at the end of last year, which prior I had asked, can you guys help me develop? This is a focus that I would like, which is continue to teach our community. And in some organizations you get the backlash or whatever. But I took the initiative to resign because I wasn't seeing myself gearing to that goal. And when I sent in my resignation letter, one of the leaders immediately called me and said, "Why are you leaving?" And there I got the opportunity to express what I wanted, what I wanted to initiate, what I felt that the school community needed. And we worked on it. And I'm glad that she believed in me
Wow.
and she gave me the opportunity to create this new position, brand new, and has entrusted me to lead this according to my skills and my knowledge and the education that I have and the initiatives that I have put in place. And it's tough. It's tough. It is tough. Um, but I reap it, right? For an example, the other day, a student that I know when I walked in September, and I said, "Oh, we're all going to college this year. Oh, we are all going to college." And she said, "I'm not going to college. I have a job already. My job's going to help me grow there." And we got her $90,000 in scholarships
Wow.
for one college, 74,000 for another, 64,000 for another, 18,000 for another. And her whole mindset has changed. She is a college bound student right now. She is ready to move in to college, ready to start that journey. And so these are the things that, you know, make me excited, that keep me happy.
So you're not
Mhm.
just the leader, you're also a visionary. That's really what I
Correct.
took from that. You had a
Yeah.
vision. Did you have another job lined up before you resigned?
I did not.
So you are a risk
Uh,
taker too.
yes. I did
No, I
not.
love that. I love that. There's so much to take
Mhm.
from that because so often we find ourselves stuck, and wanting to do something different and wanting to grow. And the people around us may not necessarily always have the same vision for us. And they try and keep us in a position because maybe you're doing such a good job at it that they don't want to let you go. And so you being bold enough to say, no, like I really want to do something different and taking that risk on yourself. you bet on yourself and you won. You resigned, and these people called you back and said, no, we can't lose you. We cannot
Correct.
lose you. What do you want? What do you need to stay here? And for you to be able to have a vision, be able to express that vision and share that vision with other people and see it come to fruition is absolutely amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And, when you share your story of where you've come from, very humble beginnings and teenage mom, and we haven't even talked about, the whole middle section. I know there's more there. Um, to now be able to really start your own program at a school that's, been in existence for 20 plus years is pretty remarkable. You should really be proud of what you're doing.
Thanks.
So let's talk
Thanks.
about that middle section, right?
Ooh, that middle section.
So
It's like
you
the middle
got your
child.
GED. Got your GED. Struggling to make it, but you're doing what you need to do to survive, working 3 jobs. At that point, I'm imagining you're in your 20s,
Correct.
right?
I'm
Because you
in my
said you stayed with your ex for about 5 years, so you were 20, right?
yeah. We were 7 years actually
Okay, so you're
together.
like 22-ish.
Yep, 22-ish at the
Okay.
time.
All right. So
Yes.
what happened? How did you get comfortable? Did you stop working 3 jobs?
Mhm,
I know
mhm.
you said you went to
So
college, so at what point did that happen?
yeah. So I went to college, and of course, I couldn't keep up with college because finance was more important at the moment. I was a single parent. I had a 5, 6 year old at the time, and coming from being very protective, right, and not wanting, or not entrusting anyone with my child. And again, that mommy guilt, right? If anything happens or anything, I got to be the best parent I can be, right? All the time, I got to be the best parent I can be. I have to, make a difference. My child cannot grow up like I have. And just having those constant thoughts, right? Of knowing that I cannot repeat the same cycle, or my
Mhm.
child cannot repeat the same cycle. I kept working and working. And then, of course, life takes its course, and I meet someone again. And then this person was a provider, right? Comes into my life as a provider, and you no longer have to work. And you can be a home at stay mom. And that's what happened. So I stayed home, and I ended up having another child and starting a family, you know, and stayed together for 18 years.
Wow.
18
So wait,
years.
let's just do
Yeah.
a little timeline. So you
Yes.
and your ex broke up 22-ish. How old were
Hmm.
you when you met the new gentleman?
I was 24.
Okay,
So
so
about
2
later.
years later. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Years later.
then you guys got together and he was providing for you. You were
Yes.
enjoying life. You had another
Yes.
baby. She's beautiful. You're in love with her.
And I'm 26. I'm a grown woman, right? And it wasn't anything like when I had my child when I was a teenager. Very different, right? Very prepared as a woman to take care of my children, and take care of my house, and be a provider as well to my husband at the time.
So 10 years later, your kids are 10 years, 10-year age gap.
Correct. Nine and a
Okay.
half. Yep.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So 10
Yep.
years, you're a different person, right? You're not that baby raising a baby. You're now a grown woman who knows what she's doing, raising her baby, taking care of her 10-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
and taking care of her husband.
Correct.
So life is good.
Life is good. Life is good. I get to stay home. I get to cook, clean. I get to, be part of PTOs. I get to be part of my baby's life all the time. I don't have to send her away to a daycare. I don't have to send her away to my parents anymore in order to support me. I don't need my younger sibling to come and visit me in order to support me babysit. So, it was good. It was really, really good. It was a great time at the moment. Yeah,
So you say at the moment, that means there was a pivot at some
correct.
point. Tell us about
Mhm.
that if you're okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with sharing that. I wasn't okay with sharing it about 5 years ago. I've gone through some processes that have come to light and have given me, and I say like this opportunity here, right, to speak about it and to let it out, like I say, right, let it out. Not ashamed of it anymore. So of course the baby's born and she's growing, and the baby's heading to 5 years old. My other baby is heading to 15 years old, high school. I'm getting bored. I'm getting bored because now I've done everything, and I want to go back to school, and I want to actually get my degrees now because this is something that I've always wanted to do for myself. In the midst of that, um, I didn't know how much power someone had over me, right? I did not know or wasn't aware that me staying home and being a wife and, a stay at home mom um, was actually part of the plan of someone controlling me. And so when I decided to make decisions for myself, which were, it's time for me to go back to school, finish my degree. The kids are going to get older. I'm still young, right? What's going to be, how is my future going to look like when the babies are 20, 25 years old? What am I going to be? You know, who am I going to be? What am I going to feel like? Who do I want to be?
So you decide
Um,
you're going back to school.
I decided I'm going back to school, and challenges became going back to school apparently made this individual feel as if I'm working on myself and getting better. And many fights started, a lot of disappointments. I will go to school, and while I was at school, I'll be in my own element. When I get home, I would be accused of things. You're dating someone. What are you doing at school? You really aren't in school. What are you going to school for? You're already 25, 26, 27 years old, whatever it was. You know, who are you going to become? You're an old woman already. So a lot of discouragement, a lot of verbal abuse started happening. Um, Within that, because of course, I'm getting educated, I started realizing that behavior wasn't normal. And not only was it coming from just you wanting to control, there has to be other things involved. And of course, I knew he was an occasional drinker and, of course, a gambler and someone who's in control, right? Because he's in control. He pays all the bills. He takes care of me. He takes care of my other child, who's he's adapted as his own. He takes care of the baby. There's nothing that I can ask for that wouldn't be given to me. There wasn't anything that I needed. Honestly, if it came down to financial, food, shelter, there wasn't anything that wasn't provided for me by him. But the day that I determined to better myself, things changed.
Mm. So how long after you started school did that major shift happen?
So so I got through my associates, and no I scheduled my classes during the times that the babies were in school. And since, he was someone that managed his life the way he did, he lived the nightlife.
Mm.
So I knew that as long as the babies were in school, and he thought that I was at PTO or volunteering somewhere. So I took advantage of going to school. And I would always schedule my classes around the baby schedules. That way, when they got out of school, I would be at home as well.
So he didn't even know you were in school.
He did not know I was in school for the entirety of my associate's degree. He didn't even come to my graduation because I didn't know how to tell him that I completed my associates. Of course, things always resurface because the kids talked, right? And I was afraid for some things, but I wasn't afraid for other things. And I'm saying that as such, if he found out about it, yeah, I was saying, and yeah, I did it. And, I would have to deal with the verbal abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to deal with the condescending behaviors that came beyond that verbal abuse. I would have to deal with days him not showing up at the house because he's upset at me that I'm bettering myself. But I continued, I continued striving. Um, I met a wonderful mentor there, which is you. and and I continue to see a vision. I continue to see a vision. And the vision was that whether I stay in this relationship or not, I need to become someone better and educated for my kids' purpose, for my children's purpose. That way they would never endure and go through the things that I've gone through. And if when they do, I will be prepared to guide them and help them through it.
Mm.
So that was my stickler, and nothing kept me from that. Also, I got involved in school. I was involved in clubs and volunteering, work study, even at the age of almost 30 now, because I was now going on 30 during that time. A lot of challenges at home through those years, mental illness,
Mm.
partner I had, a lot of violence, a lot of fights,
Mm.
a lot of fear. At times, I would have to stay at hotels. I would run away with the girls, to a friend's house and hide there. I would come up to Rochester sometimes when I had the chance. And of course, I couldn't hide it anymore. The family knew, friends knew. It started impacting me my last year in school. But I persevered and I finished. Um, and there were times that, abusers, right? They manipulate. So there were times that he would apologize and he would talk, yes, I'm proud of you, and yes, I'm glad that you're going to school. But there were other many times where I was being accused of doing other things in school besides getting an education that were totally insane and absurd because that's not who I was. That's not who I am.
What's
But I did.
crazy is a lot of times I've heard people say, how can you be this strong woman who has a teenage baby and, gets through that, you know, go into this relationship and allow yourself to get into this type of a situation. And, I always give the analogy that if you knew on the first day, obviously you wouldn't stay, right? If you go on a date with a guy and he punches you in the eye, at the end of the day, you're never going to date him again, right? But that's not what he does. He makes you fall in love with him, right? You have a baby for him, right? You have a family now. You're
Correct.
invested, right? So it's not so easy to just say, okay, I'm walking away. Doesn't work that way.
Correct.
And so you had to figure out how to navigate this situation. So
Correct.
ultimately, what ended up happening? Because I know you said you're back in Rochester now.
So ultimately, of course, I finished school. I was very fortunate to get a career. at the school that I graduated from, because of the bridges that I built there, the connections that I made, the student who I was, you
Right.
know, spite of everything else that was going on personally in my life. Again, I was fortunate to land a job
Right.
immediately after I graduated. Within that organization, yeah, they helped develop me, and I had a career, right, and I was educated, and because of that, I hung on to that. Of course, things got worse at home. Of
Mm,
course, the mental illness was very, very difficult for me to deal with. There were hospitals,
wow.
stays, order of protections, um, a lot of lying, a lot of lying. Um, I had to teach my daughters how to lie to get through our day. Um, but one day I heard a voice, right? And the voice said, "You have to leave,
Mm,
or you're going to be mentally ill." And the reason for is because I was coping with alcohol.
mm,
And every single day, I would end my day with drinking alcohol and drinking alcohol. Drinking alcohol led to me becoming irritable and aggressive to my own children. And when those occasions would happen, of course, the next day when I get up, my children are different with me. So now I'm hurting. Now
mm,
I'm verbally abusing. Now I'm mentally abusing. Of course, I didn't remember what would happen because, I was coping. Um, and the guilt of wanting to die because I was hurting my children. Not only had I hurt them by allowing this relationship to go on, now only was I hurting because I exposed them to a lot of abuse and a lot of instabilities and a lot of insecurities. Um, it was driving me crazy. It's driving me crazy. And I wasn't stable. And I remember that in one of those visits in which he was in the hospital and CPS was called, again, statistics, domestic violence.
wow.
Yes, here I am. Statistics, statistics, statistics. And I'm educated now and I'm still going through this, right? But through that journey, I learned, right, that it takes 7 times for the abuser, right?
Yep.
And just learned all these things and, just adapting it. And one time hearing that voice, that inner voice saying, just drop everything and leave.
Mm,
Just take that risk. Just take that risk. And, of course, the back thoughts were like, but you have a good job. You're going to grow. The kids are in good schools right now. My big one had just graduated high school. The little one was entering, middle school. A lot of changes were going on with them, you know? And now here I am going through my own issue. And I just had to take that risk. And the risk was leaving the house. And when I did that, of course, there was a lot of chaos that went on. Again, hiding, order of protections, the lying, right? If he wanted to see the kids couldn't, had to lie to him where they were at, or just continued on survival mode, because that's where we were, on survival mode. But because I couldn't continue to live on survival mode anymore, I took the risk and came up to Rochester, not knowing what was going to happen. But coming up here, um, I strived, a lot of depression, a lot of anxieties, a lot of drinking,
mm,
a lot of self hurt, self guilt, um, even manipulating myself. I call it at times. But through that, right, I kept persevering because I always say that I know better. I know better. And knowing better, I started seeking coping skills, which were therapy, going to church, sacrificing things. Nope, you will not drink. Nope, you will not. You will not do that. You will not do that. Um, and being honest to my daughters at that point, no longer hiding, no longer lies. We're going to be very transparent because we came here for a change. They didn't like it, but I kept believing that keep doing what you're going to do, and life will take its course, and you're going to reap the benefits. And here I am.
Hmm. A lot of women can relate and soothe themselves with wine every night. And I think um, a lot of people are in denial
Mhm.
about um, their reliance on that alcohol.
Correct.
At what point did you feel like you knew you had a problem?
I couldn't go to sleep without alcohol. I can function during the day, but I couldn't go to sleep without alcohol. And then let me just retract. Coming up here wasn't an easy transition either. Because remember, he was even more angry when I left the house. And I left my job. And, the blame was that I destroyed our family. And he would continue coming up here. And order protections had to come. And the girls were bigger now. And everything that I tried to hide them from, I could no longer hide them. And he would take trips up here and hide and follow me. He even found out where I worked at. And when the girls started noticing this behavior, then they knew for sure that the problem was him. It wasn't mommy. Because within the manipulation, he would say that it was my fault. I destroyed the family. I tried every night. I would say, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. And of course I drank. But I became aware. I became aware of my drinking, right? Like, wow, I'm drinking. Because before I wasn't. It was like, so I'm drinking and so, this is what I need, right? I started becoming aware and being in tune. And one day, he called the girls and he was like, I'm going up there. I need to see you guys, right? I felt he was coming up here to kill me.
Mm.
And I felt like that was it for me. He's coming up here and this is going to become a tragedy. I didn't want to say that to anybody, but again, I was very aware, just um educating myself, right? What abusers do, right? What happens to victims, domestic violence,
Mm-hmm.
tragedies. And yeah, he came up and I hid for the weekend. I hid. He visited the girls, and when he went back home, he did have a gun and he shot someone else. And he went to jail. So when he went to jail, I felt free. And that's when the real power kicked in. And I admitted that I had an issue. And I admitted that I was an alcoholic. And I admitted that I needed a lot of help. a lot of help.
So coming to terms with that, what type of support did you get? Who were your major resources?
So, of course, my parents again, right?
Good
Even
old
though they were
parents. Can
now
always
elderly.
count on them.
Of course, my mom, who and who always would listen to me, right? Always listener, just a listener. And so I will go there and just vent, and my dad one day said, "You're going to be fine, girl. You're going to be fine. You're back home with us. You're going to be fine." So I held on to that. And I loved my girls. I fell in love with them again. And I rebuilt our relationship. And I was very honest all the time and am very honest. And just talked a lot. And I went and got myself a PCP, that a behavioral specialist, right? And she helped me through a lot of channels and continues to help me. When I don't see her for more than 3 months, she shoots me a message through the medical chart, whatever. Like, I need to see you. I need to see you. Um, and just telling myself, stop hiding, stop keeping it in. You're not the only one. Yes, you are a victim. You have been victimized. Now it's time to repair.
Mm.
And of course, my outlets continue to be a therapist and church, podcast, um, listening to great music, and I'm falling in love with the earth, which takes me on long walks and appreciating the trees, the flowers, the sun, the moon, the clouds, the birds, and knowing that I come from nature and that I have to continue being natural. And being natural does not mean mental illness, does not mean alcohol, does not mean dependency, does not mean fear, does not mean condescending to myself. And so here I am.
Here you are. Here you are.
Yes, here I am.
You made it.
I have.
I
I
imagine
have.
it's still a struggle every day.
It is a struggle every day. It is. But I have learned to constantly remind myself of where I come from, the challenges that I've gone through, the impact that I'm making.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
it was all for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. I'm so grateful. Very, very grateful. My 31-year-old owns her own home. She has a fiance. She's a beautiful woman. She's my best friend. My 22-year-old, very educated woman, decided to get married on me this summer, but to a wonderful husband, a fireman. Um, I've
Do either
created
one
my
of
family.
them have children yet?
No, they don't.
You broke
They
that
don't.
generational curse.
And they both graduated from high school. They both have a degree. They both own their own homes. They both have a career. They both are with gentlemen that have a career. They both are with gentlemen that aren't afraid to love their mother-in-law and to seek guidance from their mother-in-law, which makes me so happy. And my daughters aren't afraid. They don't live in fear anymore. Um, they don't worry about their mother anymore because I had developed a sense that they had to be worried about me. And I didn't know that. And I don't ever want them to be worried about me. I want them to see me as the woman that I am, as the mother that I have been to them, a strong woman, a reliable woman, someone that's going to continue to be educated, someone that's going to continue to give back, to care, to love, to have empathy. So, again, here I am.
You made it.
Yes.
Wow. Like I said, the iceberg, right? You
Yeah,
see this beautiful woman, two amazing daughters, both doing well for themselves. You don't know the backstory.
correct.
But despite that backstory, look how beautiful you came out. The iceberg.
Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely the iceberg.
Thank you. And I wake up every single day being grateful, first of all, no longer having those fears. That abuser has come out a couple of months ago. I am no longer fearful of that abuser. I no longer feel as if I have to look over my shoulder, you know, because I believe that I proved to that abuser that he wasn't going to abuse me
Anymore.
no more.
Damaris, you have an amazing story. And I think your strength radiates even in your ability just to share it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'll ask you this last question. If you had to advise other teenage moms who are coming up, who may be thinking, I'm not going to be able to make it, this is too hard, what advice would you give to that 16-year-old?
Action conquers fear. So as long as you're taking action, those fears will not exist. Continue taking action and taking action positively, taking action sometimes with taking risk, right? Holding yourself accountable, being very honest to yourself, facing your truth, and knowing that there is a future out there and that there is hope.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for this. I
You're
know
welcome.
for sure that my listeners are going to take so much from your story. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's about sharing the journey so people know that they are not alone, that there is someone else experiencing what they're experiencing, and they can come out on the other side, which you have. Thank you again, Damaris. You were an absolute pleasure to have on the show today. We definitely are taking a lot of your advice and your journey to help us continue to grow. May your heart be filled with the brightest of sunflowers, even on the cloudiest of days. This is Dr. Edith Banks with the Sunflower Nation, sending you love and positive vibes. Till next time.